Welcome to the Spinning Our Gears podcast. Before we begin, a quick reminder. All views, issues, and opinions are solely those of the hosts and their guests and do not reflect the opinions or positions of any department, agency, city, county, municipality, state, or country, or any other organization. This show is rated E for explicit. Listening and viewer discretion is highly advised. Spinning Our Gears is a law enforcement leadership and mental health podcast. We confront the issues and conversations others are afraid to deal with. Leadership failures, the culture within law enforcement, accountability, and the realities of life on and off the job. You can find us on YouTube, all of the major podcasting platforms and social media outlets, as well as online at spinningourgears.com. And now, without further fanfare, this is the Spinning Our Gears podcast.
Spinning our gears. Admin talks and broken plans, doing the best that we can. Jokes on shift, truth off mic, trying to live a normal life. Mental health ain't weakness, no, it's the stuff we learn as we go. Say it out loud, make it clear, this job don't own us here. So tune it in, don't disappear when it all gets heavy here. Real talk, real voices clear, spinning our gears, podcast is here.
Where they stepped back and they let 19, 20 pre-incident indicators occur and didn't do anything, and they got shot. Then I have other videos where one or two indicators happen, and the officer put handcuffs on them, and there's no incident.
That's right. It didn't look good. It looked ugly.
But the data would say, well, you used force because you had to use an arm bar, you had to put handcuffs on them,
Right.
or you had to tackle them.
Right.
That doesn't look good. Well, what really doesn't look good is when we have to shoot people dead because
Yes.
we've waited way too long.
Yes. And again, we've forgotten that you can detain a person. You can put a person in handcuffs for detainment, and then when everything's calm, all you got to do is unlock those handcuffs. Handcuffs doesn't mean they're under arrest. But because Monday morning quarterbacks and the public who doesn't know, like you talked about, have started commenting on YouTube and TikTok and all those things, the admin have listened to that, and they've got this perception that, hey, we need to stay hands off, we need to de-escalate. And like you said, it's getting cops hurt and getting cops killed.
Well, and it's the last time I'll say it, but that's that sacred cow. By staying hands off, you're creating higher levels of force. I mean, I have the data to show it, man. I have the data to show it that if you get a couple, two or three indicators, and if you just intervene right then and there to keep them from sort of that OODA loop, break that up because of what they're doing. Because here's why the indicators happen. This is not me making it up. It's been studied in science for 100 plus years. Before someone does something, they think about it first, and that creates a physical manifestation. Okay, that's what indicators are. So it's not a debate. It's not a debate when you're talking to somebody and you go, put your hands up, and one hand goes up and the right hand goes in their right pocket, or you're talking to somebody, all of a sudden they start scanning the room. That's not a debate. They are considering violence, usually fleeing or violence. So interject, get in the middle of it, get in a position of disadvantage, get some handcuffs on them, back up, let them know you know what's up. That is what de-escalation is. But we've got this completely wrong. It's causing a lot of problems in the profession. And this spring, I mean, I have literally for the last 6 months been doing this all day, every day. Our certification program, we have 500 plus slides right now. It's a 40-hour course. It's all going to be able to take it online. And when you take this, you'll know more than anybody, probably more than me. I mean, I've poured everything I've got into this. And maybe nobody takes it, but maybe it saves some lives. Maybe somebody takes it. So if you're out there at a department and you go, man, we got to get this to our department, you don't have to hire me to come there. I'll come, but you can just take this certification, become a trainer, and you can train your entire department. And I'm convinced of it. I know it's going to save lives because I've got testimonials from my survival class where people have told me it saved their life. That's them telling me. So I know there's potential here. I wish I didn't have to do it. I wish we were doing things right. I wish leadership recognized this. But we'll get there, man. We'll give people the resources and tools to help them.
Before we move on, because I don't want to keep you all day long, we got some more stuff to talk about. Where do you think confidence plays a role with the officer themselves, especially since COVID, since 2020, and since some of these policies have been implemented? Where do you think confidence is fitting in to all of these issues?
I thought you said confidence, so let me just confidence first with a C-O-N-F-I. I'm from Oklahoma, so my spelling's not too right. But confidence is huge. Don't get the confidence. Confidence is huge because when you see these videos, and everyone out there is watching has seen this, where you've seen the officers hesitating on what to do, right? That's a confidence and a competence problem. Confidence is, man, I know something's not right, but I'm not sure what to do, and what will I do to get me in trouble? And we're more worried about policy than we are going home at night. Well, that's what Focus is going to be able to do, because when we scientifically validate these behaviors, they're going to have a lot of confidence that we can take action on this. Because, it's the old school is, I saw some furtive movements. Well, that's not going to cut it, right? You're going to have to be able to write very specifically in your reports, and we're going to give you the tools to do that. And let me tell you how important validation is for these behaviors. What validation means is this: hey, it's more than me thinking. It's more than a hunch. It's actually more than my training. It's been peer-reviewed through science that these behaviors are a huge indicator for violence. And we all know that it does not exist for law enforcement. A lot of great training out there, some great training out there on this issue, but nobody can really tout the research. Well, guess where it has been researched at a high level, Turk? Everywhere but law enforcement. If you're a nurse, if you're a doctor, if you're a clinician, if you're working a geriatric ward, if you're a paramedic, they all have validated systems of pre-incident indicators. And guess what? If you're a nurse and you see these 6 signs that they've been trained in, you don't go talk like Chick-fil-A when you see them. You handcuff them to the bed. You call security. So it's really wild to me when I found this. In fact, there's 24 validated pre-violent systems that exist that other professions use, but it doesn't exist for law enforcement. And so when I saw this, it bothered me greatly, because once we build that system, and we're well on our way to build that system for people and get it published, that will give the confidence to officers to be able, because you don't see controversy in other professions when violence is occurring and the actions they take, and they have the confidence to deal with it because of their studies, and it's more than just a hunch. It's been studied at a high level. And then when it comes to competence, I actually don't think we're short of competence, because there's more training that exists now than ever for law enforcement, but it's the competence in the wrong areas. I bet most cops that's been through the academy the last 5 years could tell you all kinds of things about diversity and inclusion and sexual harassment policies and the de-escalation tools and what to say in verbal, this and that, but very few of them could tell you about issues we're talking about today, unfortunately. So I call that check-the-box training, right? Mm-hmm. Our leaders, unfortunately, instead of training our officers to make their jobs better, smarter, and safer, they're training their officers to, as you already talked about, let's try to mitigate any type of litigation. A, B, C, or D. And the funny thing about litigation, CALEA has made $1 billion because of this. Mm-hmm. Oh, if you're CALEA certified, we help, it limits litigation. They can't prove that whatsoever. There is no difference in that. I've done a lot of expert casework, and nobody gives a rip that you have 5 letters before your agency name, that you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to keep a sticker on your car. What a scam all that stuff has been. The best way to prevent litigation is to do the right thing, try to prevent higher levels of force by actually doing the things that does that, not this scam things. Mm-hmm. And then litigation's still going to come, but then you have to fight it. The reason some of the litigation is so high in our profession is because we just go, okay, we'll give you the money.
Yep.
What are you talking about?
We will not fight it because it will cost more in lawyer fees to fight it than it would to pay out.
It won't typically, because we have in-house lawyers and city lawyers, but usually I'm not even going to say it, because I get paid money from city lawyers by helping them. I'm not going to say what I was going to say.
The key there, though, is that check-the-box training is to protect the department and the admin, saying they put you through it, and it's another way to throw the frontline officer under the bus when crap hits the fan. We put them through the training. They just didn't adhere to it. They knew what they were supposed to do, but they didn't adhere to it.
If you're working in an agency and your use of force policy is 12 to 24 pages long, that policy is trying to get you thrown in jail and mm-hmm. trying to get you fired. Mm-hmm. That's not a use of force policy. That is a policy that has put a bunch of stupid stuff in there. I mean, Minneapolis is in the news. Their use of force policy literally says you will use of force that builds trust in the community. What are you talking
Right.
about?
Right.
That means any officer I could point at and say, you violated this policy because this person doesn't trust you
Yeah.
now. I mean, we're putting stuff like that inside our policies. And so I call those policies designed to throw cops in jail, is what I call them. They're policies designed to fire whatever cop you want. It's not an actual policy. And there's so many policies we've done that to.
And shame on you if you have not read your department's policy. And if there are things that are confusing you in the policy, you need to start asking questions. And if they still don't understand it, maybe it's time to start finding another route, another department, another career field. Because just like Travis said, these policies are designed to screw you over. And that's just the basis of it.
Well, Turk, the timing's perfect on that statement. Because if you are a police officer in the state of Minnesota, and you're listening to me, you need to lateral out of the state of Minnesota.
Right
and
now.
Here's why. I just wrote an article on this. You can go to travisyates.org and you can hit articles and see all this stuff. But I just wrote an article on this. And I've been talking about this actually since it happened, but nobody seems to pay attention. But now it's in the news because of what's going on in Minneapolis. 21, Governor Tim Walz signed legislation that changed use of force policy for the entire state. Now, let me remind people, use of force is based on Graham v. Connor, Supreme Court, Constitution, but states can be more restrictive, okay? Well, in the state of Minnesota, every Minnesota police officer is under this. It's not a policy. It's in the law. And it's crazy in itself. Let me tell you the craziest thing. It actually says that you can only use deadly force if that deadly force would have still been justified without your presence. Let me repeat that because that's the craziest thing you'll ever hear today. Deadly force is only justified if that force would have had to been used without your presence. Meaning, you could stop a car, you walk up on the car, and a guy pulls a gun, you defend your life. Well, wait a minute. Would he have pulled that gun out
If you hadn't
and
stopped the car.
endangered civilians without you there?
Yeah.
Now, and people go, "Oh, well, Travis, that sounds crazy." They're about to try to indict that ICE officer
Right.
with that section. Now, the supremacy clause says that they can't do that, but they're just going to do it for virtue signaling because that's a federal government issue. The federal government's responsible for that. But that was written in law not to make anybody safer. It was specifically written in law so they could throw any cop in jail they wanted to. I'm telling you that right now. And so it's so crazy. North Dakota borders Minnesota, and a lot of small towns, they would go and help Minnesota out and stuff. When that happened, North Dakota law enforcement said, we're no longer coming to your state. We're not going to put our officers under that. And so that happened in 2021, Turk. No one's talked about it. FOP didn't talk about it. ICP didn't talk about it. No police organizations talked about it. They just let it happen. And here we are.
And for one agency to say we're not going to help another agency should wake everyone up. It should, your eyes should be wide to the fact of something is
That's
wrong.
what people need to understand here. We're not talking about bad leadership. We're talking about decisions that are designed
Yes.
to destroy law enforcement officers.
Yes.
That's what that policy. It's not a policy that does anything other than this. This enables us to charge officers with a crime. Even if it could be legal in every other aspect of use of force, this will always make it illegal by saying that.
So we're on this topic. Do you want to talk about Washington State or do you want to go into the DOJ?
Man, listen, I feel like this, you can ask me whatever you want, but, DOJ, once again, I feel like, why am I the one talking about this stuff? Now, I know we talked about, I think, consent decrees briefly last time, and just to give you the quick history, in 1994, in the cops bill, it enabled, now we hired 100,000 cops on the streets. It was one of the reasons that crime in the 90s was at a record low because more cops actually work. And but in that bill, it enabled the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division to investigate local law enforcement for a pattern and practice of civil rights violations. Now, anybody in law enforcement has known that this has been weird because it's just kind of random. They'll go into a department, the department's always sort of help them. They'll staff up, help them staff up. They'll pay millions of dollars to help them, and then they look at all the reports or videos or whatever, and then they always come back and say, "Oh, you got this big pattern of violating people's civil rights." And then no department ever goes, "Well, can you show us how or why or give us the evidence or maybe we'll go to court and debate this?" No, the departments just always go, "Okay, what can we do?" And they said, "We're going to run your department." It's called with a federal monitor, right? Consent decree.
Mm-hmm.
And when the federal government runs these cities, they get destroyed. In fact, right now as I speak, 7 of the top 10 most violent cities recently were under a federal consent decree. And it's a money-making machine. The average cost of a city is $2-3 million a year, and federal monitors make on average about $1 million a year and to write 4 reports, and federal judges are running departments. Now, by the way, it's unconstitutional. Okay, it's called states' rights. It's in the Bill of Rights, in the Constitution. Federal government cannot control local entities, only if you let them. And so these weak leaders have always let them. But if you really paid attention to this through the time, you're like, well, this something doesn't seem right, because every time a department's taken over, everything gets worse. Crime gets worse. Everything gets worse. Nothing gets better. And then nobody's actually asking them to try to prove this. Well, this sort of turned over the last couple of years. They went to the Phoenix Police Department, and they launched an investigation. And it's really dirty. I'll give you the link in a minute to read how dirty this stuff is. Usually the DOJ will only go into a department where the fix is in, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Hey, is the chief on board? Is the mayor on board? Will anybody argue with us? Okay, let's take over this city. And they love taking over large blue cities. And so Phoenix was set up for that. They had brought in an interim chief who was a major in Baltimore. Didn't know you had the resume for that, but he was over the consent decree. So he was in bed with the DOJ. And so he immediately hired his lawyer friend and paid him $1 million a year to be a consultant. And then they've spent over $10 million assisting the DOJ to investigate their own police department. Well, I got involved.
$10 million. Understand that. $10 million. $10 million.
Yeah, they literally spent $10 million over the course of 3 years to assist the DOJ to investigate their department. Well, here's what happened. The union there, incredible, courageous leaders of the union, they knew what was going to happen, because they called around they called New Orleans, they called Seattle, they called these other cities, and they all went, it destroyed our city. And the DOJ lies, and the DOJ does this, the DOJ does that, but it's never been able to be proven, because once again, the city leaders just cow down and
bend over.
And in fact, once they get into it, the leaders love to go, we had no idea. It happened in Oakland. People can look that up in Oakland. Oakland is about on the verge of bankruptcy and destruction. It's one of the highest crime. Well, they were under a federal consent decree for like 20 years, and about 10 years in, the mayor goes, we had no idea this would do this. We thought because they have plausible deniability. They told us it would do this. We had no idea. Well, so what the union did in Phoenix is they went on a massive media campaign. Now, the local media wouldn't report on it, but they literally started inundating the citizens with the history of what consent decrees do. In fact, they put a website up called SavePHX.com. Hundreds of articles of previous cities and the destruction. And that was enough to get enough citizens to contact the city councilors who would make this decision and go, you better not sign off on that until, you look at the evidence. And so right before Trump administration came in, they were trying to knock this thing out. The DOJ comes to the city of Phoenix and says, what we found was bad, one of the worst ever. We found 134 incidents where you violate people's civil rights. Now, they looked at 8 million calls. Not much of a pattern in practice, but okay. And so the only way we're going to be able to remedy this is you're going to sign off the department to the federal government right now and let us run it. And so the city councilors were scared to death. They wanted to do it. It's almost like a political chip, and chiefs are getting to make money doing this stuff. But they were so worried about what they were hearing from the community and with the efforts from the union, they made this audacious ask from the DOJ. They go, would you mind showing us the evidence and showing us your investigation? And the DOJ goes, oh, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. And so they said, well, we're not signing anything. Why would we sign anything without reading it? And so the DOJ came out with this report that made them look like the crazy. It's just awful. And, of course, the local media for a year ran excerpts of that report showing how horrible the Phoenix Police Department is. Well, they went on the offensive, and the city councilors made the police chief at the time put a public website up and release every body camera footage and report from the 134 incidents. It's never been done. Now, if you would take the DOJ to court, which is the remedy, okay, I don't agree with this. Let's go to a court and debate this. That's what would have to be done. But no department had ever done this. In fact, the DOJ will never actually do that, because what would happen is if a department lost, they would appeal it, and the Supreme Court would say federal government cannot control a local police department. So the DOJ actually would never go to court, but nobody's ever challenged them really in court. Well, this public website came out, and I had about 3 months of free time, and so I went through every single incident, every video, every report, and I compared it to what the DOJ said. And what I found was in 97% of the incidents, they lied. They completely lied. And nobody cares. Local media, instead of the local media reporting that, they just want to report that this controversial figure studied the consent decree, right? That's what they do.
Right.
So you don't hate the media enough, because if any law enforcement agency lied 97% of the time, if any police officer lied 97% of the time, they would be run off this planet.
90%,
never to have a
5%
job
of the
again.
time. If they caught them doing it one time,
Yeah.
they'd be run out.
So here is the highest level of law enforcement in the United States. The Department of Justice is caught. By the way, no one's challenged it. I'll show you what the report is. You can go look at it yourself. You can go watch the videos yourself. Lied 97% of the time, and they're still operating. In fact, we spoke to a bunch of congressional members and showed them the report, and they said, you have got to get rid of this. Like, they don't get the right to ever investigate law enforcement again. And they go, nope, we're not going to get rid of it. It's control, it's power, it's nasty. And so you can read that whole report at lawofficer.com/DLJ. I mean, it's all up there to see what we found. And obviously it's sickening. And you're going to say, well, how do they do that? Well, it's simple. If you do not ever apply Graham v. Connor, and you don't ever apply Terra v. Ohio to anything,
Thank you.
You just bring in your opinion. They would say things like, you would read what the DOJ said. You go, the Phoenix Police Department talked to a mentally ill person, and instead of helping him, they shot him. Violation of civil rights. Well, when you watch the video, they failed to mention that he tried to stab a police officer. He raised a gun at a police officer. One guy was like kidnapping somebody with a gun to their head. They would just omit all those facts. And so if you were dumb and you just read the DOJ said, you would go, and this is the most racist, craziest police department. Let me tell you how crazy it is. The DOJ made a big deal about, this because Phoenix, not surprising, has a homeless issue. And so the business developers had to actually sue the police department to enforce the law. And so the police department had to actually do it. The DOJ brought in all these arrests, so they were citations and arrests for public drunkenness or trespassing. They brought in all these arrests and said, you violated all these people's civil rights for enforcing a city ordinance. And the city ordinance, Supreme Court had already come out with the case law that said you can do that. And so the DOJ just decided to completely ignore what the Supreme Court said, that, hey, cities get to enforce laws around homelessness. Yeah, it's not a crime to be homeless, but it's a crime to loiter, it's a crime to be drunk, it's a crime, and you can enforce those laws. They completely ignored that, and they just came out and said, see, they violated all these people's civil rights. Well, that's not for the DOJ to say. That's for a judge to say. Honestly, people should have lost their jobs. Mm-hmm. And I know now they've cleaned a lot of that stuff up. But it's all lurking.
Perception is still there.
Pretty proud. 2 days after that research drop is when Trump got rid of all consent decrees that were in existing cities. But it's not going anywhere. You don't. If a Gavin Newsom's president, you don't think they would ramp this thing up? And again, of course they would. And so when that happens, we'll be ready. And for any department that would ever subscribe to this, they should be shamed into oblivion because of what we found in Phoenix. And so it's not just Phoenix. In the report, we talk about other things. Judges all over the country are finding. I mean, there was a judge in New Orleans that asked him a simple question. He was about to sign off on it. He goes, "Well, can you give me details on what you said?" And they go, "No." He goes, "Well, I'm not agreeing to this." And so it's a lot of deception. It's just left-wing bias inside the DOJ that hates cops, and they're the ones that they send them to investigate law enforcement. And it's all about, once again, destroying the profession one notch at a time, and they've used the DOJ to do that.
And understand this is happening, citizens and cops alike, this is happening all over the country. Sometimes it's in a microcosm of what's going on, but to kind of reference my local area, we've got a county that decided to bring in someone, not from the DOJ, but a doctor to come in and do this study, right, to prove that they weren't racist. And all this doctor did was take statistics over a year time frame of what the department did. And the statistics were, what was the type of interaction, what was the gender, what was the sex of the person, or the race of the person. And then, obviously, no shock to cops out there, the results that came back were, well, these are the racist things that are taking place. These are the civil rights infractions that are taking place because, yes, that white officer, or just that officer in general, went to a neighborhood that was 95% black. Shocker, he dealt with 95% black people.
That's right.
So all of a sudden now they have to tarnish that officer on his record, and they have to move him to a different neighborhood to start bringing his stats down. The one department that I know of, they were also collecting like arrest versus citation versus, letting them go with a warning. The one department that I know of, they said that they were stopping minorities at like a 75 or an 80% rate, but they were arresting and citing them far less than white people. But yet somehow they were still racist in their actions in that way because they were stopping more, and it's a civil rights violation. And
Well, listen, I can't believe this trick still works. But let me tell you why it works. Our leaders let it work. Here's what's crazy about this profession. If you're the CEO of Apple or Nike, you want just honesty and truth about your organization. That helps you make good decisions.
Right.
There's a segment in law enforcement leadership that if you can prove that you're leading a racist department and you're going to lead them out of this, you get the next best job, dude. Like that's the truth. You get and you can call certain people for hire that will say your department's racist. And here's how they do it. What you just said. Now, a real researcher, if a chief or sheriff actually cared about honesty, a real researcher would come into the department and they would say, okay, give me the demographics of who's committing Part 1 crimes. And the reason Part 1 crimes are important is because we don't pick those crimes. There's a real victim. There's a real crime. It's reported. Rape, robbery, burglary, homicide, you name it. Give me the demographics of that. Okay, it's 70% this race. It's 30% this race, whatever. Okay, now let's break down the contacts your officers are making by race when they enforce the law. It's going to match up.
right.
It's going to match up.
Right.
But they won't do that because it won't show them what they want. And the reason it's going to match up is, let's say you have a high murder rate or a high robbery rate in a neighborhood. And if that neighborhood happens to be predominantly a certain race, you're going to flood that area with officers to try to prevent those crimes. And so the stops are going to reflect that. I've done this for many, many departments. Every time the variance is about 0.5% among all races. But shame on us as leaders for not doing that, for letting some PhD that's never been a cop come in and fudge all the numbers and do this spineless type of research. It's not even validated. No journal with a right mind could publish anything like that.
Nope.
Because you're not. It's like going to an NBA game and going, you don't have enough race of this, or how come the demographics are different in a hockey game and an NBA game? What, are all racist or what? It's so stupid. Right? And cops deserve more. They deserve leaders that actually want to look at the truth and look at honesty. And man, so often we're not getting that.
Well, and that brings up my next point that I want to talk about. This is kind of that trickle-down thing where you talk about you have an overreaching agency like the DOJ who's making up statistics, making up information that they're then pushing out to the leaders to perpetuate. I think that obviously there's a staffing problem in law enforcement. There's record numbers of officers getting out. There's also record numbers of officers killing themselves. We use incidents like George Floyd and like Michael Brown as kind of, I think, a scapegoat where we go, well, law enforcement just got crappy after that because the public doesn't like us anymore. We're hiding the fact that it's not the public doesn't like us. It's the fact that these admins, these leaders, and these overreaching agencies are not growing a spine. They're not standing up and telling the truth. They're telling these lies that you talk about.
Yeah, those incidents have nothing to do with it. I've never talked to one cop that left because of an incident on the national scale. They're all leaving because they don't trust the people they're working for. They're all leaving because they don't support anything. You don't have to believe me. Gallup's been doing a polling with all industries about why do you stay at your job? Why do you stay there? And, law enforcement's throwing out all this hiring bonuses and pay raises, and that's not what the research says. That benefits is about 4th or 5th place on why people stay at their job. The number one reason, since they started the study about 50 years ago, was I am supported by my leaders. It's that simple.
Yeah.
You have agencies in this country right now that have no recruiting issues, no retention issues, because they know if they go do their job, they're going to be supported by doing their job. So, I mean, this would happen in any profession. If an accountant came to work every day and was scared to death about making one mistake and getting fired and their name in the news, they would not be an accountant anymore. So if you do this to any profession, so we're being destroyed from the inside. People don't like to hear that. I don't speak 200 days a year because of that. right? But we are destroying ourselves on the inside because of the people that are there. And my only hope is the people that aren't there yet can hear this and can turn the page and make it better once they get there.
Yeah. If you think that cutting a 5-figure or a 6-figure check to get an officer in the door is going to fix the problem, it's not. You're creating a huge deficit with the budget you have available to you. I don't understand why anyone would go to a California to take $100,000. Well, unless that contract is a year long, why you would go to a California and accept $100,000 to sign onto an agency just to get run through the ringer from community and your admin for, however long you have to sit there. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, if someone starts in law enforcement today, 62% of them won't be there in 5 years. That's what the studies are telling us. We're not acknowledging that. We're not trying to correct that. The future is bleak. And I know people like you and I are fighting for this, Turk, but the future is bleak because of that. You're never going to sustain organizations if you can't keep people more than 5 years. That's what we're having. And they're not leaving because, they could you get paid more money over here. They're leaving because of you.
And they're getting out altogether.
They're leaving because of you, man. They don't trust you. You have lied to them. You gave them all these slick marketing materials to get them in the door. You told them that the first time at the academy that you were important to them and we got your back. And the first time they either A, made a mistake, which mistakes happen. It's different than an intentional act. They made a mistake, or they did something right and you came down on them. That's it. I talked to a cop just the other day, man. It's a crazy story. He goes, man, we're chasing a man with a gun on the radio. He's got a gun, he's running. We lost him a couple of times, so I'm on a perimeter. This dude comes around the corner and sees me. I go, keep in mind, what's the amplifier he knows at the time? Man with a gun, fleeing cops. So he says he sees him, and the guy starts looking around and starts backing up. Huge behavior cue. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't see a gun in his hand at the time, but he knows the information. He tackles him, gets him handcuffed. The gun was in his pocket. Textbook. They started investigating him for not de-escalating. This guy, if he stays in the profession, and probably isn't after talking to him, if he stays, he will never do police work again.
No.
Ever.
No. You're not going to be proactive and go out and put yourself at risk when you're already fielding calls that are putting you at risk, and all of a sudden your decision is, am I going to die or am I going to get fired?
This guy's action should have been textbook for the academy to show people what to do. Instead, they launched an investigation on him.
Probably should have got a Medal of Valor from his agency.
So that's what the profession's dealing with. Not every agency, of course. We're speaking in general terms, but a lot of agencies, a lot of people are dealing with it, and they're just scared to talk about it, right? I mean, that's the problem. They're scared to talk about it. That's what's going on. The public needs to be aware of that.
They're scared to talk about it because of those overreaching agencies that come in and tell you things. But as a community member, I think you have to remember everyone's screaming about community policing, and I've given my opinion on what that truly is and what it isn't, but how are you going to get community policing from an agency like the DOJ that doesn't know what's going on in your community? They don't know the crimes that are taking place. They don't know what you want, what you need, and how to solve those problems. They're just going to come in and say, yeah, you're violating civil rights.
They don't only do that, Turk, but the federal monitors don't even live in the city. They found out in Phoenix that they were renting this guy office space at 6 figures a year. He hadn't been there in 3 years.
Right. Send me the stats.
And he's running the department.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Right. You want to cover Washington State? You sent me this article just after it dropped, and I was, one, courageous leader out there, right? Amazing. But the idea of what's taking place is shocking.
Man, give everybody a quick summary of it. My brain, I've been rattling off so much crazy stuff. Give me the quick summary of it, because it is just like what we talked about in Minnesota. It's designed, the law's designed to destroy not only law enforcement as a whole, but individual officers.
So in Washington State, the state is trying to push this law that limits what officers can do on duty and off duty to the point, it's all very, very vague, like we've talked about. Where if they deem or determine that you are part of some sort of radical group, or if you're trying to hide your identity, or if you have an opinion of any sort, they can come in as an overreaching agency and decertify you as an officer from officer up to chief of police or sheriff. That includes looking at your calls for service and your uses of force.
Listen, man, it's crazy, because this is a leadership problem. Politicians do what politicians do. And what politicians love to do is they love to make it sound really good. Hey, it's the Illinois Safety Act for safety. Well, it actually destroyed law and order in that state. Oh, it's Black Lives Matter. We're for Black Lives. Well, it's called Build Large Mansions. They didn't give any money to Black Lives. So they love to do this, right? And, of course, that's what Washington did. But they passed this original law in 2021. I wonder what happened to cause that. And the leaders didn't say a word because it only affected the line officers. It just happened. And this law is crazy. It says stuff like you said, if any speech is offensive or if any of this or that or if your use of force is just out of policy,
Right.
which we know that can't be abused, right?
Right.
All these crazy things, we will decertify you. We can decertify you. An unelected body appointed by the governor can decertify you. Well, now they're coming in with the revision to do it to sheriffs and chiefs. And now they're all of a sudden up in arms, right, to do it to sheriffs and chiefs. But, yeah, I just mentioned a few of them, but essentially it's written to where, now, they couch it, it's really medieval while they couch it. It starts off with, hey, we're going to do background checks on people. We're going to make you go to so much training a year. And we're like, that's great. And then you keep reading, it goes, oh, by the way, if you're part of an extremist group that we determine, we're going to decertify you. Oh, by the way, if you say something that's offensive, derogatory, discriminatory, we're going to decertify you. Which I'm like, and you're determining that.
Right.
No specifics.
Right.
You know, and I had some naysayers go, well, I mean, overall it's good. I go, bro, the Biden administration was investigating Moms for Liberty, Charlie Kirk's organization, and all these organizations for being extremist groups, right? So you're telling me that the state of Washington's going to get this right? No. And so, of course, we shouldn't want officers part of extremist groups, but you're going to decide what the extremist group is,
Exactly.
politician?
Exactly.
Whatever. And so, and listen, the reason I mention it, it's not just Washington. It's easy for some guy in the Midwest to look at this and go, that's just Washington. You think this happens in a bubble?
Right.
It's all coming your way.
Right.
It's all coming. That's like body cameras. You know, they pushed body cameras on us, which I think probably saved our profession, but it did the opposite effect of what they wanted. So now you see these legislatures going, well, if you violate the body camera policy, we're going to put that in law as a misdemeanor. Literally, you're seeing that. They try to do it in the state of Tennessee. If you violate the policy of body cameras, it's a misdemeanor crime. So you're seeing these legislators figuring out, hey, on straight up and up, it's hard to get these cops thrown in jail and fired. So here's what we'll do. We'll pass laws to so if it's a policy violation or if it's this or that, or we just can determine whether they're doing it. So it's really medieval what's going on. It's under the table. And most people don't pay attention to it. People ought to be. And once again, I know I've said this before, I find it very wild that I'm the guy having to talk about this. Where's our organizations at? Where's these national groups that say they're for us at? Nobody wants to dive into this stuff because the money keeps flowing.
Right.
Guess who funds the ICP a lot of money? The Department of Justice. So they're never going to say anything about the Department of Justice. In fact, the DOJ will cite the ICP in their little consent decrees. They said, you do lateral vascular neck restraints, and the ICP says that should be banned. Says nobody with a brain because it's never hurt anybody.
Right.
You know, you watch it every weekend in MMA, so it's just ridiculous.
And to put this into perspective, right, to violate the body cam policy, you have an officer on scene of a call that's lasted an hour and a half, 2 hours, and they're ready to soil their pants. So they need to go to the bathroom. They're going to turn their body cam off because they don't want it going to court, them going to the bathroom. Now, all of a sudden, that becomes a policy violation because the call was still taking place and they turn their body cam off. That's the type of stuff that we're talking about here. These laws that are being put into place are worded very well. Yes, no officer wants a member of KKK in their department. No officer wants someone who's spewing political jargon and defaming other individuals. We don't want officers that are going out killing people for no reason, but that's not what's taking place. They're using these laws, they're twisting the words for these little minor things so they can get their way, and like Travis said, get officers out of law enforcement because they don't want law enforcement.
Well, it's about power because departments have policies now that cover all that. There's policies in your manual now that kind of covers off-duty behavior and speech and things. So there's policies that exist, but that's not good enough for the politicians. They want to be the ones to decertify you and destroy you, not leave it up to the local agencies.
But the local agencies are diving in, right? Because the chiefs and the sheriffs, they want to save their own position. So if we can get it at our level and it doesn't make national news, then we win. We're continuing to collect our paycheck. We're continuing to further our career and potentially get a new job later on down the line and get passed around. As soon as we screw up, we're just going to bounce and we're going to go somewhere else.
failure rate is so tremendous at the executive level because no chief's been fired for high crime. Just think of that. And I put this challenge out there. Nobody can find one. I go, find me one police chief in America that got fired for crime going up.
Right.
You won't find it.
Right.
It's the only metric we should be judged by. You won't find it because they keep their job by not doing police work. They keep their job by doing the opposite of things that reduce crime. If you want to fix policing tomorrow, you literally go to every chief and say, if crime goes up 2 years in a row, you're fired. They will then be forced to actually do
something.
What our mission is, law enforcement. Our mission is so simple, it's in our name, law enforcement. So you do that tomorrow, hey, if crime goes up 2 years in a row, it's like a football coach. We're going to give you 3 years to rebuild this program.
Yeah.
If crime is not down in 3 years, you're gone. And guess what? They bring crime down because we know how to do that.
Well,
Turk.
they would.
We know how to do that.
They would, or they would start doing like the DOJ and fudging the statistics, right? They would come in on the back end and they would change UCR codes.
There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, a ton of that going on.
A lot of that going on.
When we can declassify a murder to a homicide to an assault, the running joke for the county that I started in was you could go kill somebody and they'd plead it down to a no DL ticket because it looks good on paper. So
that's right.
As we're kind of winding down here, one of the things that I want to mark here is you guys see how passionate Dr. Yates is about this. The dude is retired from law enforcement, and he's still making it part of his mission to try to fix the career field. And like you saw, he gets amped up because he's so passionate about it. I want to know, what are you doing on the back end for you to kind of bring that stress level down when you're doing this stuff 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and it's getting you ramped up? Because it can be applied all the way down the line.
I wish I would have learned some of these skills when I was on the job. But one thing that retirement did is, I'm still busy, but I'm busy on my own schedule. And so I have a very highly scheduled day, and I'll just tell you what I do. It may not work for everybody, but if I start my day in Scripture and end my day in Scripture, 1 hour in the gym. I have a home gym, so I don't have to leave, don't have to waste time with that. And it's just scheduled. So whatever I'm doing, I go. And I find if I can get the spiritual in and I can get the fitness in, any things that I find in the middle of that generally kind of keeps me on a calmer level. I didn't do a great job on the job. I was always just like fight. And I think you've got to come to the realization that there's some things you fight and there's some things that you just can't fight. You don't have enough energy or time in the day. You want to be really, really good at certain things, and you got to sometimes let things go. But I would just recommend to anybody that, you've got to, regardless of what you do, you got to plan that day before you get to that day, because I think it's our default button to really not do much of anything, right? I mean, if I did what I wanted to do all day, I'd just be Netflixing and chilling. Well, maybe not chilling. I've been married 30 years, although my wife's great.
There's always a project to do.
I would chill on the weekend, right? But yeah, if we were up to ourselves, but you need to schedule it out. You need to have a purpose. You need to have a goal. And that doesn't stop when you retire. Retirement's not in the Bible. Retirement's not. That's the American thing. And I got news for you. You probably can't retire anyway, right? I mean, because they all lie to you about that police pension anyway. It's not exactly what you think it is. But just do. Everybody's got a role to play, and I believe God's given everybody gifts to play that role, and you've got to use those. I just happen to have the gift of I can speak and I can write, and so I try to use that as much as I can. But yeah, I think probably the most important thing I've been able to do for myself is to schedule my day out. I'm not like this all day, but there's certainly times that I'm scheduled out to obviously have to do this, and really writing and speaking is almost a wellness thing for me. Like if I bottle this stuff up is when it bothers me. So by me writing and by me speaking, it certainly helps out.
Well, God certainly talks about how laziness is not a good thing, and yes, we all want to reach retirement, but you have to find some sort of work and make it not work. You need to put your effort into something because that's what we're looking for. What does Scripture look like for you in the morning and the evening? Is it like online sermons? Is it strictly the book? What are you looking at?
Well, I'm an old school guy, so I have a John MacArthur daily Bible reading.
Okay.
I have it simple, and literally each day, if you do it every day for a year, you get through the whole Bible. But if you do it right, it's 15, 20 minutes, each day, and it explains it really good. And so I wasn't very consistent in that when I was on the job. I always had an excuse, right?
Yeah.
I'm busy doing this, busy doing that.
Yep.
But man, it's been amazing how consistency in that, just something as simple as that. Hey, 15, 20 minutes a day in quiet, reading these words, it's shown me a lot. It's helped me a lot. And honestly, I think my life would be exponentially better if I'd done this 20, 30 years ago.
1,000,000%.
The way I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
And so even if you're sitting there going, that seems crazy, man, you ought to just try it, right? I mean, you can get the thing on Amazon. For me, it's easy, but there's a whole bunch of different things you can do. I know I have a Kindle, and so sometimes if I have a little extra time, I'll stop that and I'll jump the Kindle out and I'll either read a devotional.
Yeah.
And then I usually have a book or two I'm trying to get through at the same time. And I'll spend a few minutes a day doing that. So, yeah, man, and then the fitness part is important because I find myself that if I miss that, it kind of makes the rest of the day not great.
Makes you grumpy.
And I'm not some sort of, I'm not some CrossFit guy taking pictures of my meals. I'm not some crazy guy like that. But you just got to move, right? Just move a little bit each day. And I think people will find that to be very helpful.
I will tell you, it is amazing the things that you will discover and that will open your eyes by opening that book. And like he said, 15 minutes a day, you got 15 minutes, man. Do it while you're on the crapper, right? You've got
you're doing
15
that,
minutes.
Scrolling whatever, right?
Right.
You're doing TikTok dances for that long.
Oh, buddy, this was one amazing episode. I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I love the passion that you have and how that reflects and how it kind of gets absorbed by everyone else around you. I knew that we had to bring you on early on in this season because it's kind of the movement we're making. So thank you once again for coming on. Is there anything else you want to depart everyone with?
Well, I would just say this, Turk. You're the reason this stuff works, right? I'm just one person, but I mean, we have you and a handful of other people, and you're unicorns, man. Not many people are talking about these type of issues. So I can't thank you enough and your followers enough because I know the frustrations. Like sometimes you're thinking you're speaking to yourself here. Like nobody's paying attention to this. No one's listening. But every once in a while you'll get a little gem back saying, oh, okay, somebody did listen to that or somebody did read that. Just keep it up. Stay consistent, man. And we may not ever know this side of heaven, what you're doing for the world in general, but I can't thank you enough and the people that listen to you enough for what you do.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to depart everyone like I do, every episode. Please do something good for somebody else today, this week. Doesn't have to be huge. Give them a handshake, a high five, a compliment, a cup of coffee, something, because we have to get back to our roots of people, and we're going to change this world one person at a time. Stay safe, warriors. We will get through this together.
Admin talks and broken plans, doing the best that we can. Jokes on shift, truth off mic, trying to live a normal life. Mental health ain't weakness, no, it's the stuff we learn as we go. Say it out loud, make it clear, this job don't own us here. So tune it in, don't disappear when it all gets heavy here. Real talk, real